strange name. Millie and Michelle, which are the other two members, are not here with us, but they are following through the stream, I hope. Hello, you there? I'm gonna share my screen because we would like this to be kind of like an open talk without a strict schedule. So I'm gonna share my screen here. And this is gonna be kind of like a session when we all work together. You'll see why in a second. And the structure of the session will be as follows. So first, who we are, then what we do, then how we do it, and finally the challenges and benefits of this kind of like floating studio we have created. I think you can ask questions in the YouTube live, so feel free to ask them there, and somebody will write them to us or tell them to us later. Okay, so who are we? As I said, I'm Alvaro, and we are 4 multidisciplinary designers. And the name is actually a spoiler, so it's 3 girls and 1 boy. Hi. And we are from 4 different nationalities, living in 4 different countries. So we recently founded our studio, and in our time with you today, we're going to try to untangle our experiences so far. And we think these experiences are somehow relevant, we hope, because of the particularities of our studio. We hope you find this interesting as well, but just a quick disclaimer. This is not a best practice manual, not even a list of tips about how you should do this if you want to do it. We just started this journey recently and we are figuring it out as we go. But maybe by listening to it, to our ramblings, you can get a little bit of a head start if you want to do something similar. Or maybe you decide that this is definitely not for you and you want to work in the exact opposite way. So, okay, so who are we in a bit more detail? Matea, who is here with us, she studied media design and specializes in visual brand and design. And she's originally from Germany and currently lives in Iceland. Keep this in mind because it's gonna woo. Michelle studied biology and design, and she specializes in service design, poetry, and creative writing. She's originally from the US and lives in Norway. Okay, are you with me? Then Milia studied product design, packaging, and brand design, and she specializes in brand experience and packaging. And then she's originally from Finland and lives in France. And then me, Alvaro, I studied industrial engineering, of all things. And later I went to design, and I specialize in animation and 3D lately. I'm originally from Catalonia in Spain, and I'm the only one who got back to the motherland, and I currently live in Spain again. And you might be thinking, what the hell, like, how are you working together? How do you know each other? So at some point, we all lived in Iceland. And we were for Utlendingar, which is Icelandic word for outlanders or foreigners. And we were in a very small but very exciting country. And this experience changed us in some way or another. So this was like our nexus and what made us meet and made us want to work together somehow. So for example, me, I was Michelle's flatmate, and that's how I know her. And Michelle was Milia's friend. Then Milia was Matea's co-worker. So that's kind of like how we met each other. But strangely, this studio didn't start while we were there. This started right after the first wave of COVID. We had recently been quarantined, and for example, I hadn't been allowed to leave the house in months. Like literally, in Spain was quite bad. Others could just go for a walk. I think in France you could just be briefly walking on the streets. I think in Iceland was a bit more relaxed. So it was pretty rough for people, as you know, for sure. I'm sure you were having all these restrictions as well. And at that time, we started working remotely. We started chatting with friends via Zoom or via like chat and stuff through a screen. We started doing weird things like buying groceries online if you couldn't go out of the house. And then when things got better and restrictions started to be lifted, we were very eager to meet people in person, of course. But somehow something had changed in us, and some kind of like online barrier had been like breached. So suddenly delocalized work seemed like something really obvious we hadn't considered before. And then we started exchanging text, and those are the first times that like the words floating studio appeared, while we were trying to put a name to what we were beginning to think about. And then soon after, we had our first video calls where we decided we wanted to work together. But we didn't want to be like a traditional studio, partly because we are all like kind of like scattered in Europe. So we thought we wanted to be like a collective of freelancers that work together to make bigger things that one of us can achieve on our own.
Yes, and just because of that, like I want to talk about like now what we do, kind of. So what Alvaro was saying right now, that we kind of had this idea to form the studio. The thing was that we had kind of to decide what is the thing that unites us, like why is it the four of us, why would we be good to work with each other. So we kind of had to find the common ground that unites us, and why we wanted to do it and start this project. So one thing was that we all wanted to take a step forward in our work. Like we wanted to do something new and exciting that we have not done before. And like we said, Alvaro mentioned it, I worked with Milja like in a traditional work environment, and some had experience working together, others have never met really. So before we started GGGB, it was important to us to understand like where we stand skill-wise and also aesthetically, because and to what level we wanted to create content, because sometimes you work with people that are creative, but you don't have an aesthetically common ground. So there is not, you can finish projects with such people, but it's not like they're not projects of the heart kind of. And yeah, they have different artistic approaches that make it very hard to work with or to find common grounds when you divide tasks between you. And everybody of course has a different style of working and of concepting and of creating. And yeah, we try to consider these things when choosing our teammates. And we just wanted to see how we would eventually work together by starting out with our own branding and our own visual language. Like I said, the first project we were working on really together was our own branding. And you can see here now, Alvaro is sharing our first experiments, like kind of a snippet of our mood boards and what we did, like a first trial and trying out with the name and stuff. And that led to our final visual direction and visual language of yeah, having such really simple forms and elements on our website, for example, that you can that you can move around and play with and have fun. And yeah, this was our first collaborative project. How then we figured out how to how we are compatible with. So we actually divided the workload and tried to work with each other like in teams of 2 people always. And that went surprisingly well, and we were really fast of deciding on a direction and being, yeah, have the final look. And so that was a really nice experience that made us confident in that we could actually do this, and that we come together and with all forces. And because of course each one of us is specialized in different disciplines and does what they are most interested in, and we come together and we bounce ideas and create concepts and use design thinking. And for example, Michelle is the copywriting part. She's really interested in poetry. She does conceptual design and service design. Alvaro is the 3D guy. He does motion design and storyboard. And Milja is like the packaging of all sorts, product design trends. Me, I am more the art and creative direction part and the visual design. Yeah, and we try to unite all these professions and what's behind them to create GGGB. to mainly create projects that we are interested in ourselves. And that is brand design in a cultural field, or like independent brands, slow fashion brands, environmental friendly and sustainable brands and companies. And we just want to work with people that bring things into the world that we want to see ourselves, kind of. And yeah, in our deck, or in our creative deck that we like to present to clients, it says, we build bespoke visual worlds around brands. We strengthen your core by creating a holistic brand experience for your audience to enjoy and connect within a lasting relationship. And I mean, what that basically means is that we want to dig deep towards a brand's or company's core, discover it, voice it, and translate it into a visual language, which is called, in the end, holistic brand design. And I don't know, maybe you all guys are familiar with what that is, but I'm just going to explain it for those who might not know. So holistic brand design is basically an overall visual world for a brand and what you can call the experience with it. So if you, for example, take the example of a perfume itself is basically just a liquid that you spray on your skin that makes you have a scent on you. That is a perfume. But the brand itself is the thought of, how is this liquid, where is it in what kind of bottle is this in, what kind of shape does this bottle have, what did people think about when they created the packaging, what kind of textures does the packaging have, what kind of shape, is there something embossed or ingrained, is there foil used, what type of typography is used, then the chosen lingo, like the words that they're using, how are they talking to the customer, also where is it sold, how is the display, is there something special in the store, are people that selling it the sellers, what do you say, the shop people, I don't know, are they wearing something special around it? I mean, maybe if it's a high-end brand, then they are. And we are really interested in this overall experience for a brand, and to dig into it and consider all details around it to create like a really unique bond between the consumer and the brand. And we just picked out a few examples of a brand design that we did, which is one example is the Studio Valkea. It's like a concept studio. And it's a sub project called project, how to make the everyday washing ritual more joyful and special. And we created a website for it, and we did a digital exhibition, which was part of a design festival in Iceland. And yeah, we did this like 3D animation of it, and we're highlighting like the highlights of this project because it is actually inspired by Iceland and America. And yeah, that was a really, really fun project that we all also like worked together on. And the second project, or like the second company we were working for, is called BioEffect. That's actually an Icelandic brand. And me and Milja, we worked for this brand in-house as in-house brand designers before we were freelancing. And we did campaigns for this brand, just like overall strengthening the brand, putting the visual language out there, and did social assets like 360-degree campaigns, art direction. And yeah, that was a really nice experience, like learned a lot from that. And yeah, the last project, Alvaro's project, yes.
Yeah, the last project I've been more involved in, and this is some animation work that complements an interview with Pedro Ferreira. This is a professor of astrophysics at the University of Oxford. As you know, sometimes interviews are very, they are very like scientific and like deep. Might lose some viewers that are not used to it, so they commissioned us to do some animation that accompanied the words in the interview, and this was a really exciting opportunity to work with putting some animation on top of a really, really interesting video. You can see here some snippets of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. You can go on.
And, yeah, I mean, the thing is that this studio is really a new baby. It's like the story is quite short, or the journey is quite short, but we all are really professionally, we're like senior designers, so we have experience with working with clients, and we have also worked as part of teams that were actually quite big or small, and we have led teams, and so we learned which methods work, which don't, and what is important to us. And I think that's why it worked so well, that we came together and we brought all this experience together and created our own and made rules of our own, and are just familiar with this whole procedure of creating a project or a product in some cases. And yeah, so it's nice to actually get projects that involve all four of us, because then we can all just go come together and create something new. And of course, that's not always the reality. Sometimes we just get projects that are really tiny, and I'm doing that job, or Alvaro is doing something, but really big projects is actually what we're looking for. And yeah, like we said before, the interesting part is that Iceland is kind of our uniting factor. It's very, very inspiring, and it's an interesting place to be. And it's important to know that, like we said, at some point we all lived there, and this place really affects you creatively. At least that's what we were experiencing, because you have a half year is total light. There's like this midnight sun, and the other half of the year it's quite dark, and you wake up at 7 and you go to work, and maybe the sun rises not really at 12:30, and yes, and then it's dark again at 3. So this has really an input, or like an effect on your creative output. And I am still there, so I am still experiencing this every year, where the others, they moved away again. So yeah, it's really interesting, because this is just something we all share, and when we now talk about how we work, that is something to keep in mind, because we all have to be able to consider what the other, in what environment the other one is, like what the other one experiences, and how they feel. And yeah, that brings us to the next point of how we actually work.
Yeah. So how we work is, so this sounds very nice, but how do we actually do it? Like, how do we work together? So ideally, we want the four of us to collaborate very closely between us, but also with the clients. So we are all involved in talking with them and defining the brief, mapping the journey, what is expected of us and of them, what is not, when is expected of us. This is not always possible, of course, because real life and the nature of our studio. But anyway, this is what we try to achieve. In traditional agencies, there is normally, well, if they are big enough, there's a person whose sole job is exactly this one, talking to the client and transmitting the needs to the design team and so on. But we like to do this ourselves to stay as close as possible to the vibe of the client. There's actually this unwritten rule about at least 50% of GGGB being present during clients or prospects meeting or any other meeting. And I think Matea will agree. Also, ideally, we really want the client to be happy, but above all, we want them to be involved during the whole process. And we try to do that. So I think we do that because we are quite good at identifying the tone of voice and graphic flavor that they need, partly because what Matea said, that we are experienced designers, and also partly because we truly listen to them. That said, we make it very easy to start discussions and to give us feedback. In these feedback sessions that we try to schedule beforehand and put along the project. And we try to ensure that the client is happy with the direction things are taking. And at least for now, we don't take feedback as a threat, like, oh, make the logo bigger, what the hell, blah, blah. So if they give us not so good feedback, we will actually treasure it and act on it, because we need this to do something that actually the client needs and likes. And this might sound obvious, but happy and involved clients are likely to create long-lasting relationships. And we would love to have this and to continue to work with brands and with people that we believe in. So normally when a project starts, what we try to do, what we try to do is brainstorm, start a discussion between us and also with the client. And then when we feel we have enough, then we start working independently. Maybe we have the same idea, but Matea and I go through different roads for a couple of days, and then we come together and we decide, okay, we've done this. What is it that we like? Do we like my version or your version? Should we mix them or not? And then we try to repeat this. So we try to have both, like the good part of being together and the good part of being separate. Also, depending on the project, then we choose who's more involved. Of course, if this is strictly a logo design, it won't be me, because I try to specialize in animation or illustration or 3D and so on. And then there's normally one person that owns projects. So, and this person changes from all the projects. So that's good, because in the end, the project manager role, it's changing. So we are all project managers, which is kind of nice. And on an individual's level, so how does a normal day look for each of us? So it's complicated, because we all have our own responsibilities. We live in different countries, we are in different time zones and so on. So we try to make real life connections in our own countries. We try to have our networks and connect to people and build relationships outside the digital space. And then we try to get these networks inside the digital space and then to share them back into GGGB. And then, for example, at a more personal level, I commute to a co-working space. Matea has a small child and usually works from home. Milia likes to spend her day at trendy but very noisy coffee shops for meetings. Michelle has a full-time job outside GGGB, so physically we all have our preferred environments, and there's no such thing as a normal day in our studio. So a silly example, but bear with me. In Spain, for example, we usually have lunch at like 2 or 3. I don't know why, but we do that. In France, lunch happens maybe like at 12, and it can be super long. Then in Iceland and Norway, they have really short lunch times, and it's also like very early. So these little things can affect our online meetings windows. Maybe I want to meet because it's 10 for me, but then they're almost gonna have lunch, and it's a bit weird. And it sounds silly, but these things can like create some frictions and like hinder our communication, which we will talk later about. And then since we had to reflect on all of this for this talk, we realized we needed to establish some points in common that we would always have to be able to work together. But we realized this now that we were talking about this, but this happened quite organically, luckily. And then, so for example, we have a Monday meeting to talk about what's happening, what everyone is doing, and what we need from everyone, and so on. And after this, to go to more like a technical aspects, we use Slack. Normally, sometimes we use Instagram, which makes me mad because I like to have everything in the same place. But anyway, I'm talking to you, Matea. And no, we use Slack because it's very good, because we can organize it in threads by topics, which is called a channel in Slack. So for example, when we were contacted by the Captcha team about this talk, we opened a channel in Slack, and then everything that we talk about this talk, it's there. So it's super organized. We can go there and see what has been said. And since our main communication tool is that, it would be impossible to find anything if we set everything in the same main channel. It would be just impossible. Then also we use Trello for to-do lists, for example. It's nice to like write some things like quickly, and to have there some lists that we can all access at the same time and work on. We use Slack for messages, Instagram to share inspiration and endlessly scrolling. And then we normally use Google Meets for meetups, and Google Drive for working with files. And then after this morning meeting, and when we're all on the same page and everything is clear, we like to go on with our day in our own preferred way. So I'm here in studio, and there's people around me, and I normally, grab and go to my friend and ask him about something, and Matej is at home, and yeah, this is very nice, since we all have our personal quirks and ways of working, and we like to stick to them for as long as we can in between meetings. And this takes us to the challenges and benefits of this floating studio, and how is all different from a traditional studio dynamic. So what challenges do we face, and how do we try to solve them? So like we said, we're working strictly in the digital space, and this comes with its challenges. So a few of them, and I recently said something about this, is the communication. Communication is the most important, I guess, in a normal studio, in a normal way of working as well, but here it becomes crucial. Like if you try to remember last time you collaborated with somebody, I'm sure you used a lot of like Slack or WhatsApp or emails, but at some point you most likely met in person, either a class you had together, if you're students, or at a coffee break at work, or during lunch. Maybe it was at the beginning of a project to kick things off. Maybe it was in the middle of it, or at the end to close it. But you most likely met in person, if you have this possibility. And usually those like physical face-to-face encounters connect us and drive our projects forward, at least for us. I tend to save the important bits of feedback for those moments when communication flows easily, and non-verbal cues are easily understood, like everything is easier, and misunderstandings can be kept to a minimum, and so on.
Yeah, because there's, for example, when I was working in agencies, there was always this rule of walk, talk, mail. So you should first walk to someone if you can, and if you cannot walk to them, then just use your phone, like back in the days when we had phones at our desk. Then you should pick up the phone and call them. And then if that's not possible, then you should then you can write an email, just to avoid all this digital trash and like digital energy, like waste digital energy. Just like go, and also it's good to stand up, like walk a little bit and get your blood circulating. And yeah, that's all. We don't have that. It's not possible.
Yeah, that's true. So like now at GGGB, we don't have this, like she said, in our daily routine. So we need to rely on texts, emails, calls, online meetings. Definitely no walk in our day-to-day. So like those meetings that we normally try to avoid, like the plague when we worked at agencies and other companies, this saying like this meeting could have been an email, and this email could have been like a text. So these meetings are suddenly the closest and more reliable way of communicating we have. And then attending to those meetings turns into a crucial part of our day. So we try to make them sacred. We have to be there. Also, clear and honest communication is key. We need to be able to be very open about our opinions. If we think something shit, we have to say it. If we think something needs to be changed, and we should not get offended because it's not personal stuff. This is just about work, and it's okay, and it's going to be better if I say what I think before we end up with something that we maybe don't like or the client don't like. There's no time to beat around the bush since those meetings take time, and we cannot just all come together later again and ad infinitum, right? We have limited time, and meetings take a lot of time as well. And since we can't be together, but we communicate in this way, we need some sort of sense of each other. So there's a rule where cameras are always on, even though you look like trash that day, because those small details, you can see me, I move all my hands because I'm Spanish. Those small details are actually very important, and you can make an image of myself easier than if I'm just talking. I mean, you're gonna hear my accent, but hands are important as well. And then those small details, yeah, are very important for us. So cameras are on. It creates a bond, and it improves my understanding of each other, and it also increases the jokes possibility to a level I'm very comfortable with. Yeah, and that brings us to a very important chapter, which is understanding or knowing oneself.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, so daily rituals, and like Alvaro said, knowing yourself is really important. When you work in a digital space and you are not together, and you have such different routines. For example, for some people, the lack of a physical office or a physical space is productive, or it gives them, like, turns them productive, and the other person might feel the opposite. For example, if you are at home, it's like an unclear schedule. If you have to make it your own. So if you, for example, Alvaro like tried to work at home, and he was really not getting anything done, like he said himself. And so he got a table at a co-working space where you can actually see him now. And that made him just like create like a kind of a commute, fake commute. So he has to get up, he has to get on his bike, ride 30 minutes and prepare for the day, then arrive, and then he's ready to work, just like a schedule. Whereas I am not the exact opposite, because I could work in such a space, but I also really like or enjoy working alone at home, and in my own rhythm when I'm alone. And as we said, like me and Milja, we worked together as as in-house designer. So of course we were working very closely, like a normal on-site office. And but being in your own home as a workspace suddenly becomes a new way of working, and you have to create new routines for yourself, and you have to be really disciplined. Kind of, I mean, I don't know, the question comes up, like, for example, do I get out of my pajamas now, or do I just keep them on? Some people just keep them on the whole day and they can be productive, and they just stay in the same clothes all day and they go to bed in them as well. So, but you have to kind of find a middle ground of how, when you run a business or like that, like a studio, like that it's not doesn't get too unorganized, or a mess of anxiety or notifications or late night work or the inability to concentrate. So for example, I tend to forget my lunch breaks when I'm at home, because I'm just in a natural flow at that point. And then I'm just like, yeah, my belly is a little meh, but whatever, it will go away, and I just keep on working. And then I can feel it later, I'm drained. And so I need to make these like schedules and routines for myself. And yeah, the thing is also that the private part of me, I'm really interested in social media. So when I'm then actually saying, okay, this is enough, I've worked for today, and then I sit on my sofa and I go through Instagram and I scroll through things, of course, like a creative mind doesn't just stop there. And so I see some things and I see some inspiration, and I'm still kind of working because I'm saving these things, and I get already ideas because I'm thinking, oh, this could match to a project that we're actually working on. And then sometimes I'm sending it to Alvaro or Emilia or Michelle, and they are all like, they're gone because they are better in that than I am. And then sometimes I get like an angry message like, get off your phone now. So
Not
these are
true,
just,
not angry.
yeah, okay, but yeah, okay, not angry maybe, but yeah,
They
these
care for
schedules,
you, you know?
yeah, these schedules are really different. And also just because we live in different time zones, um, that we have to adjust our schedules and figure out a way of how working together could be maximized. And for example, Milja had a phase like a few months ago where she was really creative in the nighttime, and she had a creative flow at 1 o'clock, and she was sending me stuff while I was already going to bed. And she was super drained in the morning and in our meetings. And so, yeah, she kind of shifted. She kind of had to shift that. And yeah, these things are figured out along the way, of course. And there will be always adjustment, and these things can be changed, but it's just important to detect those differences, how we work and how our schedules are, how time differences are, to align them. And you just need to be honest with yourself and also voice these things, and not just like have the idea in your head that you need to be productive all the time. Take some time to understand what you need, and don't act like you think you are supposed to be, like, just be fair to yourself. And yeah, know your own capacity, kind of, and make good use of it. That is the tricky part in this all.
Yeah, and there's more tricky parts. There's a lot of them, but so talking about organizational challenges, I'm gonna go back to here so you can see organizational challenges and defining roles. It's also a tricky one. So you've already heard 20 times by now, we are not a traditional studio. That means we don't have a clear hierarchy. We are four individuals with different skills and interests, but organizationally, we're all the same, or we wanted to be anyway. So in the first 2 or 3 calls, when we were trying to build this up, Milia took the lead because she was the person we all had in common. So it was easier to refer to them. Because, for example, I didn't know Matea personally, or I did, but I didn't remember. So soon after, soon after we were starting to take decisions, and the studio idea was progressing, and we started sharing roles and tasks. And this was a very good feeling, since from the start we wanted to collaborate as equals. But then a bit later, snowball started, and tasks started to accumulate. Even though we didn't have any clients in the beginning, the lack of clear goals got to us, because we had quite a lot of work to do. We had to try to keep a nicely curated Instagram feed, which is really difficult. But it's just a time sink in itself. And adding this to creating our website and applying to open calls, trying to find those first clients, like shit was real. So each one's availability and character and so on ended up affecting our level of engagement quite a bit. And this is really dangerous, because people can feel they're doing too much. Other people, they can feel they are not doing enough. And this can lead to tensions. If you remember, our communication quality is not always as good as we want it to be. So these tensions can ramp up faster than in a traditional on setting, and they can get to us quicker than in a normal workplace. So now what we try to do, even if only verbally, is to really specify the role of each one when a project starts. So who is the main contact, like we said before, who is the project manager, who does the research? Am I going to be researching for a couple of days and then I'm going to pass it to you because I'm going to go on a trip? Or everything has to be like super clear. Who sketches the first concepts? Who has which role? When are we going to put it in common, etc. And this simple trick has made it easier to feel at ease, even if one of us does more than the other, because we chose it that way for a reason, and that's very clear. Yeah.
Yeah, and because of like the nature because of the nature of our studio, because it's just a virtual digital happening in a digital space, we kind of wanted to break this this virtual thing a little bit. We wanted to break it up, and that's why we, for example, tried to incorporate this virtual playground on our website. And we came up with this idea really like early in our brainstormings, and that we wanted to like connect with visitors even in a small way. And it's just the freedom of exploration, that you can move around things, that you can make your own collage, that you can create something your own, like this feeling of like entering a website and just like playing around a little bit like a child. I mean, that's the idea. I don't know how people, if like how, in what extent they actually do it. And we also had the idea of, you know, creating this collage and making it your own, and then maybe share it for others to see. Yeah, and we also want to change these elements, like just like ongoing. So this is like a constant change, and just a nice interaction. And the other part is that we wanted to create on Instagram, on our Instagram feed, this one continuous long artwork that is that you can see now on the left. And that is like a collaboration between different artists and designers, that merges from one piece to the next. So one artist gets, so every artist creates 2 posts, just so it's like for the eye, it's more how do you say, like
Feeling.
Yes, and more appealing, and there's more of a flow than if every post would be somebody else. So yeah, the artist takes a snippet of the previous artwork from the previous artist and incorporates that into a new piece of work. And yeah, we had really nice collaborations already. And yeah, that is just like a collaboration of artists and designers, but it happens through us, because we are communicating with them, and they send us their files, and we're sending them to them, and we're kind of curating that and like giving a visual direction. So this is yeah, it's really a nice idea, I think.
Yeah,
and it worked out really well. Sorry.
also, if I can interrupt you there, like we liked it that the previous post kind of like bleeds into the next one, and that's we try to make people like really collaborate, not just I'm going to do my post, I'm going to put it there, but like, okay, now I have this bit of thing that comes from the other person. What am I going to do with it? And then, you know, you have to figure it out somehow. So that was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, now you got an overview of how we work and who we are, and that this whole thing 99% happens digital and virtual. But we met up like half a year ago, maybe, in Paris, and that was our first get together, all of us, or three or four. And we had the chance to spend a weekend or a week together in Paris, and it was really nice. It was like our honeymoon. We were working together, we were sitting in cafes, we had a super nice time, because we actually through this whole virtual thing, and how we had to it was actually super easy then next to Alvaro, and I could just look at his screen, and I was like, hey, no, can you change it here? And it was just so easy then. So yeah, and this was our meeting for the first time, and that made us bond really much. It grounded us and made us feel we could work together, and it removed these digital work assumptions, especially for the members who did not know each other personally. And we really plan on doing this more often, maybe to meet up in the cities that we are actually based in now. So yeah, I mean, if any of you are ever in Madrid, Stavanger, Reykjavik, or Paris, then you can definitely hit us up and just like have a chat or a coffee or whatever. And yeah, I think that was it for now. I'm super happy like that you all were interested in listening to us, and
Yeah.
we would like you to be in touch with us. I mean, you can check us out on our website or on our Instagram, and if you want to take part in this continuous artwork, then just drop a line and say hi. So yeah, I think that's cool. And
Thank
I
you
don't know,
so much.
yeah, if there are any questions or or how you want to do that, but yeah.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very, very much. It was really interesting. It was great. Yeah, I have three quick questions, and there's also one question in the chat. If anyone else have any questions, you can drop it in the chat, or you can just like write something, and then you can turn your camera on, and you can then ask for yourself. Maybe that's a little bit better. But yeah, first off, it sounds like the whole concept sounds really interesting. Like this, I think you've created some kind of big network in 4 different countries. So like you can argue you are somewhat of an international studio because you have like all these connections are all around the world. So it's really, really great, really interesting. My first question may be a bit obvious, but the name girl boy, did it came like quick, like instantly, or did you actually have to like think about it?
Do you want to answer that, Alvaro?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, in the first moments when we were talking about this, I was talking to Emilia, and I needed a way of talking about what we were thinking. You know, you have to put a name to be able to talk about something, and it just like floating studio came to mind. You know, so this was our first kind of like embryo name. But then, I mean, we still really like it a lot, but we saw there were, you know, it's a really common word. So there was a lot of people with this kind of like names floating. There was a graphic designer with a floating studio, so we couldn't use that. And then we started thinking about things in common and things that we could name ourselves after. And then this MMMA name came up because it's Milia, Matea, Michelle, and Alvaro. And it was super nice, and I really like it. And that's my favorite name, don't tell them. But it was, we didn't like the sound that much, and it's similar to MMA, which is the martial arts, and we are not martial artists. I mean, look at me. So we like to see this repetition, MMA, but we tried to look for something else that was repeating and not repeating. And we found this girl, boy, because it's 3 girls and a boy. It's normally the other way around. Normally there's like more guys than girls in a lot of fields. So we thought it was nice to bring this up and show that we were 3 women and a man.
That we
this.
are.
Well,
that we are 3 women. Yeah.
Yeah, not in myself, but like in the group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's how it came up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and like this whole process of how you work, I mean, it sounds like you, I mean, because you're already professionals, it sounds like you just decided, okay, this is how it's going to work. We're going to do it. Like at the beginning, was it like that, or was it just like more like trial and error, like you like something that evolved along the way?
I mean, it definitely didn't come naturally because we actually always worked in real life teams. So this is also our first time that is just virtual. So we had to figure out a lot of things. There were, yeah, like we said earlier, like with these time schedules, just realizing that you are in a different time zone. Also, then you don't really realize that, for example, Germany changes and Spain also into summertime and wintertime, and Iceland doesn't. So there's a different then also between summer and winter, and just these things, and also which programs we use, which is best for what. Like Alvaro said, don't contact me over Instagram. don't write me on Instagram. Just write me on Slack if you want to know something. And yeah, no, it definitely didn't come just naturally. We had to figure things out. I don't know, maybe you have different examples, Alvaro, but yeah.
No, it was the same because it started like we said before. It started with kind of like I was messaging my friend Milia, and then she was in contact with the rest, and then we did like a first meeting, like hi. It was kind of like an awkward party when you don't know people. Um, and then yeah, it started like this, and we started putting things in common and writing things down on Trello, and then I need to do that, and you need to do this, and then it was kind of a mess in the beginning, but yeah, I think we were quick in like identifying things that didn't work and things that worked, and then trying to do that. I still sometimes write to them in a group that we have on Instagram, and sometimes you're just there and you write to them. But I mean, when we have to actually like work like more, in a deeply way, then we all go to Slack and talk to there, and we try to meet a lot and all those things that I was explaining before.
Okay. Yeah. So one last question, about from me. It's this whole idea of the floating studio. Do you think it would be like it's something it's going to start appearing more in like this kind of small agencies, like this idea of making a studio, an agency with people all over the world to form one studio? Do you think or do you think it's more like, I don't know, just another type of studio?
I mean, I had a lot of people asking me how we do this, and a lot of people actually also saying, "Oh, I could not do that." And when I was asking why is that, then they were saying, "Yeah, because it is really hard to find people to work with that are on the same level, that have the same ambitions, and are driven to push this forward. Because some people talk a lot, I guess." And then like putting it actually into reality and making it work, because it is a lot of work. I mean, this is just like a kind of like a more of a freelancer. Like if I'm just alone, I can manage myself, but if I have to manage also projects that are divided by into four portions, then it's like, yeah, it requires way more good communication and things like this. So a lot of people said they could not do it, mostly because they don't feel like they have the people to do it with. And I think we are so lucky that we found each other, and that, like I said in the beginning, that we kind of share the same values and the same ideas of what we want the studio to be, or to be. And I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people actually enjoy human interaction, especially after a pandemic where you were forced to be at home anyway. So now everybody, or maybe not, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe everybody is comfortable now at home in their pajamas, and they're like, what the fuck? I don't need to get out. Let's just start a studio, and I have to can I wear my pajamas all day? I don't know.
No, I think it's like that. At least to the people that I've been talking to, there's a lot of people that now this has changed their like schemes, and they are gonna definitely try, if their companies allow them, to maybe have one day more at home or a couple of days. I was lucky enough to work in Iceland, where a lot of cultural things are better than in my home, if I may say so. And my work schedule was quite flexible and stuff. So if one day I had to, I don't know, stay at home because they were gonna fix some lights or whatever, I could do it easily. I think it's not as easy here when you work at a company. But I think this pandemic has made people aware that this is not so difficult and this is doable. So I don't know if like full studios are gonna pop up. I don't see why not. But for example, I've seen a lot of so I follow like some like accounts that share job opportunities and stuff. And since the pandemic, a lot of them, like maybe a third of them or half of them, they say, I don't know, New York and / remote. and there's a lot of them that I don't think they were there before. So at least this is something that is happening more and more. I don't know if it's gonna be like, you know, whole teams just delocalized, but I think remote working should be here to stay. I don't know if it is, but it should be.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I guess it's just something that is coming, and we all need to figure out a way how to work with it. And I think you guys manage it awesome. Like
Thank you.
it's also fun to hear you talk about your work. It's really interesting.
Yeah. We have one last question. I'm not sure if you already kind of answered it in your talk, but Sandra asked, what do you pay for your work and how do you cluster it? Yeah.
What do you mean by pay for your work?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that either. Sandra, maybe you can.
Yeah, if you want to elaborate on that, Sandra.
We pay with our soul.
Yes, with our time and with our, you know, the eye things here.
Hey, sorry.
Hey.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just the question is in a way, how do you explain what your work costs the customer? You know, do you have a kind of structure or cluster to explain the budgets or how you manage that in such complex topics, including a lot of designers and workers? Yeah.
Yeah. So usually we just, like Alvaro said in one part, when we have a briefing and it's the first round of introducing the client and the client introduces himself, then we ask really thoroughly questions like what we need to know, like what is that he wants from us, what would that be like, how would that be laid out, what would it involve, and then we say cool, thanks for the brief, and then we sit together and we make a list of things that we would think would be necessary and who will be involved, because as I said, sometimes it's just a small project that I can do myself, and sometimes it is a big project where everybody needs to be involved, and I mean that then we just make a list and the pricing and really detailed, and we also add things that might not have come from the client that we think would be necessary just to create the overall experience. The client can always say, no, let's scratch that, but we want to include everything in our pricing so that he has an overall view and a feeling of what this would actually entail if you ask us. So yeah, then we just give them a real detailed pricing, and yeah, I mean then the negotiation starts usually, and then you have to just be a good salesman, I guess. Yeah, and sell your work and your experience. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. That helps.
Yeah, that's good.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So you told us about your little honeymoon where you experienced working offline and also experienced the advantages. So I'm interested if there's any plans in the future to maybe unite the studio in one place.
I mean, I know that Alvaro and Milja and Michelle, they all love Iceland, and they are always talking about Iceland. So maybe I don't know, maybe you want to come back to Iceland, then we could realize that. But it's, I mean, like I said, it's definitely an idea to always come back and meet each other, at least maybe every half a year, to just like unite, like you said, and work together on some projects in real life. But no, there are no real plans for now to actually base it somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think the DNA of this studio is kind of like this, kind of like floating, like we said, And yeah, like we all love Iceland, but for one reason or another, left it. And I think we are all kind of like okay where we are now. So yeah, I don't see ourselves, like at least in the near future, moving to do this together, because I think we are doing okay like this. So
Maybe
yeah.
the studio would not last so much longer if we would actually sit next to each other.
Yeah, maybe like a couple of days, you know, like a week each year is enough for us to not
Yeah.
hate us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've just read the workshops are now beginning.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's just really great. Thank you again for the opportunity for
Thank
the
you.
talk. And
Yeah, thank you.
maybe we will talk again soon in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have fun
Bye.
in the workshops and good luck to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.